This is Cast of Wonders, the young adult fiction podcast featuring stories of the fantastic. Welcome. Episode 164 for April 19th, 2015. This week we have a special episode for you, Ellen Klages' Amicae Aeternum, brought to you as a full audio production. The story is forthcoming from Solaris in May 2015 in The Best Science Fiction and Fantasy of the Year, Volume 9. It was also published on Tor.com's website, where we found it. Ellen is the author of two acclaimed YA historical novels, The Green Glass Sea, which won the Scott Odell Award, the New Mexico Book Award, and the Lopez Award, and White Sands Red Menace, which won the California and New Mexico Book Awards. Her story Basement Magic won a Nebula in 2005. In 2014, Wakula Springs, co-authored with Andy Duncan, was nominated for the Nebula, the Hugo, and the Locust Awards, and won the World Fantasy Award for Best Novella. Ellen lives in my hometown of San Francisco, in a small house full of books and other strange and wondrous things. You can learn more at her not updated often enough website, which we'll link for you in the show notes. Your narrators are Ricky Lacoste, Isis Lacoste, and Princess Scientist. First, we welcome back Fiona Van Firth, aka Princess Scientist. Fiona narrated The Girl with the Piccolo from our Little Wonders special in September of last year. Fiona is a 7th grader and sometimes video blog her. You can see her daily Advent Calendar podcast every year in December. Ricky Lacoste was the co-creator and host of the quirky and provocative podcast Cocophone's Internet Radio, which is presently in suspended animation. He's a reoccurring narrator for the escape artist short horror fiction podcast Pseudopod, and he's also a musician and the creator of an eclectic musical project called Panthea, which we'll link for you in the show notes. You can listen to that on Bandcamp. Isis Lacoste is Ricky's pre-teenage daughter. Like her father, Isis is an aspiring young actress, a prolific artist, and a musician who also has a pseudopod narration to her credit. In 2014, Isis won the award for dramatic excellence in her school. She and her father live in Toronto, Canada. And now, we've a tale to tell.
Amicae Aeternum by Ellen Klages. It was still dark when Corey woke. No lights on the neighbors' houses. Just a yellow glow from the streetlight on the other side of the elm. Through her open window, the early summer breeze brushed across her coverlet like silk. Corey dressed silently, trying not to see the empty walls, the boxes piled in a corner. She pulled on a shirt and shorts, looping the laces of her shoes around her neck, and climbed from bed to sill and out the window, with only a whisper of fabric against the worn wood. Then she was outside. The grass was chill and damp beneath her bare feet. She let them rest on it for a minute, the freshly mowed blades tickling her toes, her heels sinking into the springy sponginess of the dirt. She breathed deep to catch it all, the cool and the green and the stillness, holding it in for as long as she could before slipping on her shoes. A morning to remember, every little detail. She walked across the lawn, stepping over the ridge of clippings along the verge, onto the sidewalk. Theirs was a corner lot. In a minute, she would be out of sight. For once, she was up before her practical, morning people parents. The engineer and the physicist did not believe in sleeping in, but Corey could count on the fingers of one hand the number of times in her 11 years that she had seen the dawn. No one else on the street. It felt solemn and private, as if she had stepped out of time, so quiet she could hear the wind ruffle the wide canopy of trees, an owl hooting from somewhere behind her, the diesel chug of the all-night bus 2 blocks away. She crossed Branson Street and turned down the alley that ran behind the houses. A dandelion's spiky leaves pushed through a crack in the cement. Corey squatted, touching it with a finger, tracing the jagged outline, memorizing its contours. A weed. No one planted it, or planned it. She smiled and stood up, her hand against a wooden fence, feeling the grain beneath her palm, the crackling web of old paint, and continued on. The alley stretched ahead for several blocks, the pavement a narrowing pale V. She paused a minute later to watch a cat prowl stealthily along the base of another fence, hunting or slinking home. It looked up, saw her, and sped into a purposeful 1,000-leg trot before disappearing into a yard. She thought of her own cat, Mr. Bumble, who now belonged to a neighbor, and wiped at the edge of her eye. She distracted herself by peering into backyards at random bits of other people's lives, lawn chairs, an overturned tricycle, a metal barbecue grill, its lid open. Barbecue. She hadn't thought to add that to her list. She'd like to have one more whiff of charcoal, lit with lighter fluid, smoking and wafting across the yards, smelling like summer. Too late now. No one barbecued their breakfast. She walked on, past Remington Road. She brushed her fingers over a rosebush. Velvet petals, leathery leaves, pressed a hand against the oft-stapled roughness of a telephone pole, fringed with remnants of garage sale flyers. Stood on tiptoe to trace the red octagon of a stop sign. She stepped from sidewalk to grass, to asphalt, and back, tasting the textures with her feet, noting the cracks and holes and bumps, the faded paint on the curb near a fire hydrant.
Fire hydrant,
she said softly, checking it off in her mind.
Rain gutter, lawnmower, mailbox.
The sky was just beginning to purple in the east when she reached Anna's back gate. She knew it as well as her own. They'd been best friends since first grade and had been in and out of each other's houses practically every day. Corey tapped on the frame of the porch's screen door with one knuckle. A moment later, Anna came out.
Hi, Spunk,
she whispered.
Hi, Spork,
Corey answered. She waited while Anna eased the door closed so it wouldn't bang, sat on the steps, put on her shoes. Their bikes leaned against the side of the garage. Corey had told her mom that she had given her bike to Anna's sister, Pat. And she would, in an hour or two. So it hadn't really been a lie, just the wrong tense. They walked their bikes through the gate. In the alley, Corey threw a leg over and settled onto the vinyl seat, its shape molded to hers over the years. Her bike, her steed. Her hands fit themselves around the rubber grips of the handlebars, and she pushed off with one foot. Anna was a few feet behind, then beside her. They rode abreast down to the mouth of the alley and away. The slight grade of Thompson Street was perfect for coasting. The wind on their faces, blowing Corey's short hair off her forehead, rippling Anna's ponytail. At the bottom of the hill, Corey stood tall on her pedals, pumping hard, the muscles in her calves a good ache as the chain rattled and whirred as fast and constant as a train.
Trains!
She yelled into the wind, another item from her list.
Train whistles!
Anna yelled back. They leaned into a curve. Corey felt gravity pull at her, pumped harder, in control. They turned a corner, and a moment later, Anna said,
Look!
Corey slowed, looked up, then braked to a stop. The crescent moon hung above a gap in the trees, a thin sliver of blue-white light. Anna began the lullaby her mother used to sing when Corey first slept over. On the second line, Corey joined in.
I see the moon sees me, the moon sees somebody I want to see. God bless the moon, and God bless me. God bless.
The sound of their voices was liquid in the stillness, sweet and smooth. Anna reached out and held Corey's hand across the space between their bikes.
The moon sees somebody I want to see. God bless the moon, and God bless me. God bless the somebody I want to see.
They stood for a minute, feet on the ground, still holding hands. Corey gave a squeeze and let go.
Thanks.
She said.
Anytime.
Said Anna, and bit her lip.
I know.
Corey said. Because it wouldn't be. She pointed. The sky was lighter now, palest blue at the end of the street, shading to indigo directly above.
Let's get to the park before the sun comes up.
No traffic, no cars. It felt like they were the only people in the world. They headed east, riding down the middle of the street, chasing the shadows of their bikes from streetlight to streetlight, never quite catching them. The houses on both sides were dark, only one light in a kitchen window making a yellow rectangle on a driveway. As they passed it, they smelled bacon frying, heard a fragment of music. The light at 38th Street was red. They stopped, toes on the ground, waiting. A raccoon scuttled from under a hedge, hump-backed and quick, disappearing behind a parked car. In the hush, Corey heard the metallic tick from the light box before she saw it change from red to green. 3 blocks up Ralston Hill, the sky looked magic now, the edges wiped with pastels, peach and lavender and a blush of orange. Corey pedaled as hard as she could, felt her breath ragged in her throat, a trickle of sweat between her shoulder blades. Under the arched entrance to the park, into the broad, grassy picnic area that sloped down to the creek. They abandoned their bikes to the grass and walked to a low stone wall. Corey sat, cross-legged, her best friend beside her, and waited for the sun to rise for the last time. She knew it couldn't actually rise, that it wasn't moving. They were, rotating a quarter mile every second, coming all the way around once every 24 hours, exposing themselves once again to the star they called the sun, and naming that moment morning. But it was the last time she'd get to watch.
There it is,
Anna said. Golden light pierced the spaces between the trunks of the trees, casting long, thin shadows across the grass. They leaned against each other and watched as the sky brightened to its familiar blue, and color returned. Green leaves, pink bicycles, yellow shorts. Behind them, lights began to come on in houses, and a dog barked. By the time the sun touched the tops of the distant trees, the backs of their legs were pebbled with the pattern of the wall, and it was daytime. Corey sat, listening to the world waking up and going about its ordinary business. Cars starting, birds chirping, a mother calling out, "Jimmy, breakfast!" She felt as if her whole body was aware, making all of this a part of her. Over by the playground, geese waddled on the grass, pecking for bugs. One goose climbed onto the end of the teeter-totter and sat, as if waiting for a playmate. Corey laughed out loud. She would never have thought to put that on her list.
What's next?
Anna asked.
The creek, before anyone else is there.
They walked single file down the steep railroad tie steps, flanked by tall oaks and thick undergrowth, dotted with wildflowers.
Wild,
Corey said softly. When they reached the bank, they took off their shoes and climbed over boulders until they were surrounded by rushing water. The air smelled fresh, full of minerals, the sound of the water both constant and never the same as it poured over rocks and rills eddied around logs. They sat down on the biggest, flattest rock and eased their bare feet into the creek, watching goosebumps rise up their legs. Corey felt the current swirl around her. She watched the speckles of light dance on the water, the darkness under the bank, 10,000 shades of green and brown everywhere she looked. Sun on her face, wind in her hair, water at her feet, rock beneath her.
How much of your list did you get to do?
Asked Anna.
a lot of it. It kept getting longer. I'd check one thing off, and it'd remind me of something else. I got most of the everyday ones, 'cause I could walk or ride my bike. Mom was too busy packing and giving stuff away, and checking off her own lists to take me to the aquarium or to the zoo. So I didn't see the jellies, or the elephants, and the bears.
Anna nodded.
My mom was like that too, when we were moving here from Indianapolis.
At least you know where you are going. We're heading off to the great unknown, my dad says. Boldly going where nobody's gone before.
Like that old TV show.
Yeah, except we're not going to get anywhere. At least not me. Or my mom or dad. The Goddard is a generation ship. The planet it's heading for is 5 light years away. And even with solar sails and stuff, the trip's going to take a couple of 100 years.
Wow.
Yeah. It won't land until my I don't know, I had about 5 more greats to that. Grandchildren are around. I'll be old. Like 30, before we even get out of the solar system. Dad keeps saying that it's the adventure of a lifetime, and we're achieving humankind's greatest dream and blah, blah, blah. But it's all his dream.
She picked at a piece of lichen on the rock.
Does your mom want to go?
Uh-huh. And she's all excited about the experiment she can do in 0G. She said it's an honor that we were chosen, and I should be proud to be a pioneer.
Will you be in the history books?
Corey shrugged.
Maybe. There are around 4,000 people going from all over the world, so I'd be in tiny, tiny print. But maybe.
Anna whistled.
4,000? How big of a rocket is this?
Big. Bigger than big.
Corey pulled her feet up, hugging her arms around her knees.
Remember that humongous cruise ship that we saw when we went to Miami?
Sure, it looked like a skyscraper lying on its side.
That's what the ship is like, only bigger and rounder. My mom keeps saying that it'll be just like a cruise. Any food anytime I want. Games to play. All the movies and books and music ever made. After school, of course. Except people on cruise ships stop at ports and get off and explore. Once we board tonight, we're never getting off. I'm going to spend the rest of my whole entire life in a big tin can.
That sucks.
Tell me about it.
Corey reached into her pocket and pulled out a crumpled sheet of paper, scribbles covering both sides. She smoothed it out on her knee.
I've got another list.
She cleared her throat and began to read.
20 Reasons Why Being on a Generation Ship Sucks by Corinne Garcia Kelly. 1. I will never go away to college. 2. I will never see blue sky again, except in pictures. 3. There will never be a new kid in my class. 4. I will never meet anyone my parents don't already know. 5. I will never have anything new that isn't human-made, manufactured or processed or grown in a lab. 6. Once I get my ID chip, my parents will always know exactly where I am. 7. I will never get to drive my Aunt Frida's convertible, even though she promised I could when I turned 16. 8. I will never see the ocean again. 9. I will never go to Paris. 10. I will never meet a tall, dark stranger, dangerous or not. 11. I will never move away from home. 12. I will never get to make the rules for my own life. 13. I will never ride my bike to a new neighborhood and find a new store that I haven't seen before. 14. I will never get to ride my bike again. 15. I will never go outside again. 16. I will never take a walk anywhere that isn't planned and mapped and numbered. 17. I will never see another thunderstorm, or lightning bugs, or fireworks. 18. I will never buy an old house and fix it up. 19. I will never eat another Whopper. 20. I will never go to the state fair and win a stuffed animal.
She stopped.
I was getting kind of sleepy towards the end.
I could tell.
Anna slipped her arm around Corey's waist.
What will you miss most?
You.
Corey pulled Anna closer.
Me too.
Anna settled her head on her friend's shoulder.
I can't believe I'll never see you again.
I know.
Corey sighed.
I like Earth, and I like that there are parts that no one made, and that there are always surprises.
She lifted her arm a little.
Maybe I don't want to be a pioneer. I mean, I don't know what I want to be when I grow up. Mom's always said that I could be anything I wanted to be. But now, the Peace Corps is out. So is being a coal miner, or deep sea diver, or park ranger, or an antique dealer.
You like old things?
I do. They're from the past, so everything is a story.
I thought so.
Anna reached into her pocket with her free hand.
I used the metals kit from my dad's printer and made you something.
She pulled out a tissue paper wrapped lump and put it in Corey's lap. Corey tore off the paper. Inside was a silver disc, about 5 centimeters across. In raised letters around the edge, it said, Spunk, Corey, Anna, Spork, 2065. Etched in the center was a photo of the two of them, arm in arm, wearing tall, pointed hats with stars, taken at Anna's last birthday party. Corey turned it over. The back said, Optime, Amicae, Aeternum.
What does that mean?
Best friends forever. At least that's what translator said.
It's great. Thanks. I'll keep it with me all the time.
You'd better. It's an artifact.
It's really nice.
I'm serious. Isn't your spaceship going off to another planet with a whole library of Earth's art and culture and all?
Yeah?
But by the time it lands, that'll be ancient history and tales. No one alive will ever have been on Earth, right?
Yeah.
So, your mission, if you choose to accept it, is to preserve this artifact from your home planet.
Anna shrugged.
Well, it isn't old now, but it will be. You can tell your kids stories about it, about us. It'll be an heirloom. Then they can tell their kids,
and their kids, and on down for umpty generations.
Corey nodded, turning the disc over in her hands.
By then it'll be a relic. There'll be legends about it.
She rolled it across her palm, silver winking in the sun.
How'd you think of that?
Well, you said you're only allowed to take 10 kilos of personal stuff with you, and that's all you'll ever have from Earth. Which is why you made your list and have been going around saying goodbye to squirrels and stop signs and Snickers bars and all.
10 kilos isn't much. My mom said the ship is so well stocked, I won't need much. But it's hard. I had to pick between my bear and my jewelry box.
I know. And in 20 years, I'll probably have a house full of clothes and furniture and junk. But the thing is, when I'm old and die, my kids will get rid of most of it, like we did with Grandma. Maybe they'll keep some pictures, but then their kids will do the same thing. So in a couple 100 years, there won't be any trace of me here.
But you'll be a part of the legend.
Yep.
Okay then, I accept the mission.
Corey turned and kissed Anna on the cheek.
You'll take us to the stars?
You bet.
She slipped the disc into her pocket.
It's getting late.
She stood up and reached to help Anna to her feet.
Come on, let's ride.
Stories like this are the reason I'm so drawn to young adult fiction. Ricky, Isis, and Fiona did an amazing job narrating this excellent piece by Ellen. Ricky's also made the lullaby he wrote for the production available on Bandcamp, which we'll link for you in the show notes. Ellen says she had the idea for what she originally thought would be a poem called Why It Sucks to Be 12 on a Generation Ship for a couple of years. When she started thinking about a story for Jonathan Strawn's Reach for Infinity anthology, which had a near-future leaving the planet theme, the idea popped back up. The setting is more or less the walk she used to take to her best friend's house as a kid, although she says she fictionalized most of the streets and filched some of the geography from other places where she's lived. Cast of Wonders relies on your donations to pay our authors and bring you stories like this, the best in young adult audio fiction, week after week. If you've enjoyed the piece, please consider making a donation using the PayPal link on our site. Every one-time or monthly donation helps, and you have our heartfelt thanks. Share your appreciation for this story by leaving us a review on iTunes or sharing the episode with your family and friends. We're at Cast of Wonders on Twitter. Come say hello. Cast of Wonders is a production of Wolfsbane Publishing and is brought to you by the creative team of Barry J. Northern, our publisher and artist. This episode was generously produced by Ricky Lacoste. Jeff Haidt is our head slush reader, and I remain, as always, your humble editor and host, Marguerite Kenner. Our episodes are released under a Creative Commons Attribution, Non-Commercial, No Derivatives license. Share it, but don't change it. This piece of music was written by Ricky Lacoste for use in this episode. Thanks for listening.